Purple energy streaks across the screen as the battle begins. Massive explosions rock the battlefield, but the lone warrior in the center isn't backing down. Artemis, a top-ranked archer from the Ragnarok Guild, leaps into the air and rains down destruction. Right behind her, Hode unleashes his Void Blade skill, sending dark waves of energy at the target. The combined attacks tear up the ground, leaving nothing but smoke and rubble. A golden boot lands firmly amidst the debris. Helios looms over the crater, certain that no one could have survived that. He brings his sword down with a mountain strike, creating a pillar of light that shatters the earth. But his blade stops dead in its tracks, caught by a bare hand as the steel begins to crack. Roken just smirks, looking completely bored by the legendary ranker's ultimate move. The shockwaves from the impact make everything around him tremble, but the man catching the blade doesn't budge. His eyes flare with a dangerous light. With a single flex, Roken shatters the massive sword into pieces. Helios stares in disbelief as he's forcefully logged out of the game. Meet Roken, the legendary king of violence and a solo SSS ranker who's currently being hunted by an entire guild. He glares at his attackers, treating them like nothing more than annoying pests. Scotty tries to take him down by freezing the entire area. A massive frost storm engulfs Roken, turning the battlefield into a frozen wasteland. The ice starts to crack as Roken laughs at the weak attempt. He calls them all a bunch of flies before preparing his next move. He lets out a war cry that sends a massive shockwave across the landscape. The Ragnarok members are instantly stunned, clutching their heads in agony. Roken charges forward with a manic grin, ready to finish them off. But he's suddenly struck by multiple bolts of lightning from the sky. A massive electrical explosion slams him back into the ground. Roken is pinned down, his body smoking from the intense voltage. He grits his teeth and looks up to see who dared to interfere. High above, two giants of game descend through the clouds. It's Zeus and Thor, the submasters of Ragnarok, coming in to clean up the mess. Roken just mocks them, calling them a couple of electric rats. Zeus ignores the insult and offers a patronizing smile. Suddenly, the two submasters bow their heads in respect. Roken looks over his shoulder, sensing an even greater presence behind him. A figure draped in a long purple cape floats down toward the center of the battlefield. Odin, the guild master and the #1 player in the world, finally makes his appearance. He stares down at Roken with a cold, glowing gaze. Roken's expression twists as he realizes the head of the guild has come to finish the job personally. He bellows Odin's name, the sound echoing across the crater. The king of violence stomps the ground, trying to launch a final, desperate attack. Odin just waves his hand, and a rain of glowing spears comes crashing down. Roken is pinned and unable to move, trapped by the sheer power of the top player. A system notification appears, informing him that his speed has been cut by 30%. Odin unleashes a literal storm of glowing spears, filling the sky with lethal light. Roken looks up, sweating and exhausted, as he calls the guy an overpowered bastard. His eye widens as the first spear makes contact. The entire area is swallowed by a massive explosion of energy, and Roken's scream is lost in the noise. A system notification pops up. His HP has dropped below 2%, and his body is officially non-functional. Odin steps through the field of spears, looking down at the man who dared to defy him. The top player in the world towers over Roken, his presence suffocating. He looks down with zero emotion and simply says, "How unfortunate." Roken grits his teeth, his pride wounded more than his body. Odin mocks him, marveling at how a former top ranker could be this weak, and asks how many times he's been killed now. He offers a deal: join the Ragnarok Guild, and he'll restore everything Roken has lost. He tells him it's his last chance, but Roken just responds with a savage smirk. Odin waits for an answer as Roken slowly forces himself back up. Instead of joining, Roken gives him a middle finger and a very loud refusal. Odin's expression doesn't change as he decides that's enough talking. With a single, effortless swing, he decapitates the king of violence. The system logs him out immediately, warning him about decreased levels and dropped equipment. In a real world, a high-tech VR capsule hisses as it opens, releasing a cloud of steam. A young man sits up, gasping for air as if he just escaped a nightmare. He clutches his head, screaming in pure agony and frustration over losing everything again. He slams his fists against the floor, unable to contain his rage. The neighbor downstairs just sighs, used to the crazy bastard throwing fits in the middle of the night. Roken collapses back onto the floor, his body shaking from stress. He stares blankly at the ceiling, trying to regain his composure. This was The Lord, the virtual reality game that appeared a few years ago and took the world by storm. It wasn't just a game. It was a true virtual reality that felt indistinguishable from the real world. It was a place where people could escape their mundane lives and enter a world more vast than Earth. The world of The Lord was so realistic that players often forgot they were even in a simulation. It even featured NPCs that acted, spoke, and emoted like actual human beings. In that world, Roken had clawed his way to the top. He stood at the peak, the most powerful player in the entire game. He was an SSS rank berserker, known and feared by everyone as the King of Violence. But everything changed the moment Odin showed up and started his campaign. Sitting in his cramped apartment, Roken still can't wrap his head around how Odin became so incomprehensibly strong. Those Ragnarok bastards have hunted him down and killed him 8 times now, systematically stripping him of his status. They've taken his levels and his gear, but he swears they haven't broken his spirit. While the other top players sold their items for real money to live lavish lives, Roken never cared about the wealth. He went all in on the game itself, dedicating every waking moment to reaching the absolute top. He stares at his messy room, his eyes burning with a desire for revenge. He remembers the guild members surrounding him, their faces full of arrogance. He charges forward one last time, vowing to take them down one by one if it's the last thing he does. But the screen fades to white as he's struck down yet again. Even as the screen fades, Roken lets out one final, defiant roar that he won't lose to those bastards. But his vision blurs as the last of his strength is completely extinguished. He looks like a wreck, pinned by spears of light that are literally burning through his flesh. The Ragnarok members just watch from above, completely indifferent to his struggle. Roken grits his teeth, his pride wounded more than his body as he curses the damn bastards. A cold system message appears. You have lost your title of the King of Violence as you no longer meet the minimum requirements. Roken's eyes go wide in shock. He screams, begging the game not to take the only thing he has left away from him. But the system doesn't care. His body starts to crumble into digital pixels as the logout process begins. Odin looks down with total contempt and notes that he's not even a ranker anymore. The rest of the top players look on, concluding that Roken is no longer even worth killing. A final barrage of blue light descends, finishing what's left of him. Roken is gone. His body is completely erased from the game world. He realizes the bitter truth. In the end, he lost it all. The title of King of Violence, hundreds of levels, and every single piece of gear he spent years collecting. All gone. A final explosion rocks the area, signifying the end of his journey. And so ends the story of a legendary Roken, who met a bitter end at the hands of his enemies. At least, that's what he thought. He wakes up in a messy, dark room, the sunlight just beginning to peek through the blinds. Suddenly, an alarm clock starts blaring loudly, snapping him out of his daze. He slams his hand down on the clock, shouting at it to shut up. He sits on his bed, realizing there was no turn for the better in his miserable life. He covers his face, sweating and exhausted, thinking about how he just kept getting weaker. He scratches his neck in frustration, muttering about how the rent is due tomorrow. He wonders if he can sell whatever gold he has left just to make ends meet. But then he looks around the room and notices something very strange. His high-tech VR capsule is missing. He wonders if the company already came to take it back. Wait a second. Something is definitely wrong here. He looks around the room, bewildered, asking himself where the hell he is. This isn't his apartment. His old phone on the floor starts flashing with a new notification. He picks it up and stares at the screen. Virtual reality game The Lord, opening soon. Roken has traveled back in time to the very beginning. Roken is standing in front of a convenience store, looking like he just saw a ghost. He's sweating bullets, unable to believe the year is actually 2021. The clerk, Jang Heechul, is completely weirded out by the guy asking what year it is. Roken recognizes him as the same part-timer from 3 years ago, which only makes Heechul more concerned for his sanity. The realization hits him like a freight train. He doesn't wait around for an explanation, he just bolts out of the store. Heechul just watches him go, thinking the guy is taking a recent breakup way too hard. The sounds of the city are exactly as he remembers them. Roken stops to catch his breath, his heart racing as fast as his mind. This is definitely his old neighborhood from 3 years ago. Every detail is perfect. He tries to piece together how any of this is possible. The last thing he remembers was being jumped by those Ragnarok guild bastards in the game. He remembers dying a pathetic death after being struck by blue lightning. But now he's somehow back in reality, 3 years before it all happened. A twisted smile creeps onto his face as he wonders if this is all just some dream. He stares at his own hand, searching for any sign of a fake reality. He clenches his fist, convinced that Odin must be behind some kind of mental attack. Rage boils over as he punches the air, refusing to let his mind be played with. He starts stomping through the street, sure that this is all an illusion. He's gasping for air, the anger nearly consuming him. He screams Odin's name at the top of his lungs, daring him to show his face. Pedestrians scramble out of the way as he loses it in public, screaming for someone who doesn't exist yet. Cut to the police station where Roken is sitting in total silence, staring at nothing. The unnamed police officer is confused, thinking Roken was just looking for a friend named Mr. Odin. They let him go with a warning, but Roken is still deep in thought as he walks out. He's still suspicious that this illusion is just way too detailed to be real. He spots a concrete pillar and decides it's time for a reality check. He grabs onto it, preparing himself for what's next. He slams his head into the stone with bone-crushing force, shocking everyone nearby. Blood drips down his face, but he's got a maniacal smirk because the pain is absolutely real. This isn't a dream, it's a second chance, and he's going to use every second of it. He heads straight to a gym to begin a month of grueling physical training. He starts wailing on the heavy bags with a focused intensity. The sound of his strikes echoes through the entire room. His movements are a blur of speed and power that the other members can barely follow. The other gym members can only stare, trying to guess what kind of style he's even practicing. Every hit connects with a thunderous thwack. It's a specialized martial art he developed himself within the game, and is perfectly optimized for his body. He knows that once the game launches, everyone will be scrambling to learn how to fight for real. Because without proper body control, even high-level players will get slaughtered by low-level monsters. He pushes his body to the absolute limit, cracking his joints as he prepares for the final stage. A month later, he stands before a ruined punching bag, ready to return and take back everything. Roken's hand grips the heavy iron bar with a purpose. He grunts as he powers through another set of squats, pushing himself harder than everyone else in the gym. To him, the secret to dominating the game isn't just stats, it's having absolute, conscious control over every single fiber of his body. He knows that if he can master his own physical movements now, his virtual self will be unstoppable. He's training with an explosive ferocity that borders on obsession. The realization that he's really 3 years in the past hasn't fully sunk in, but he's not wasting a single second. He's got exactly 1 month before the release of The Lord, the game that used to be his entire life. He starts laughing like a madman in the middle of his set, making the other gym members very uncomfortable. He's thinking about Odin and his goons, vowing to become so strong they won't even be able to touch him this time. He's going to find every single one of them and cut them down to size. Back at his place, his high-tech VR capsule is prepped and ready for launch day. Roken climbs in, the machine humming as it starts to sync with his nervous system. The visor slides down over his face, sealing him into the digital void. The system begins its boot sequence, counting down the final seconds before he returns. 3, 2, it's almost time. A blinding flash of light marks his login into the world of the Lord. His eyes snap open, but they aren't the same eyes he had the first time around. He stands at the threshold of the game world, surrounded by a swirling nebula of data. The system asks him for his name, but there's really only one choice. He smirks, simply telling the computer his name is Roken. His character model materializes, ready to start from zero all over again. The game welcomes its most dangerous player back to the fold. He spawns directly into a nightmare. The tutorial village is already being torn apart by fire. A horde of goblins is swarming the streets, and the terrified locals are running for their lives. The little green monsters are picking off anyone they can catch. A goblin fires an arrow, but Roken doesn't even flinch as it whisks past. The game offers him a choice to start the tutorial, and it's not even a question. He stands tall amidst the flames, looking more like a monster than the goblins themselves. A level 2 goblin charges him with its club raised, thinking it's found an easy target. Roken just stands there, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. In a blur of motion, he reaches out and grabs the creature by the throat. The goblin freezes in terror as it realizes it just made a fatal mistake. Roken moves with a speed and power that should be possible for a level 1 player. He unleashes a blow that practically shatters the ground beneath him. He slams the monster into the dirt with enough force to crater the street. With a dark, predatory smirk, he makes it official. The king of violence has finally returned. The village is a total war zone, with fire and screams filling the air. Roken gets a system notification. He's earned the Born Fighter title for taking down an opponent way above his level. He smirks. This is exactly the kind of edge he needs to get ahead. In a world of the Lord, the achievement system is a real secret to power. If you pull off something insane or near impossible, the game rewards you with permanent stat boosts. Most players spend their time crawling through dangerous dungeons just to get a fraction of that recognition. Roken knows that grinding for levels the old-fashioned way is the slowest path possible. He's already figured out that the tutorial doesn't even give any experience points. While everyone else is panicking and getting hunted down, the map makes the objective look simple. Just avoid the goblins and get out of town. But Roken isn't looking for a basic exit. He's after the true way to clear the tutorial. He remembers a player named Tolkien who didn't show up until months after the game launched. Tolkien was the first one to realize that surviving didn't have to mean running away. He stayed and cleared out every single monster, netting himself a reward that dwarfed the standard clear. Roken starts walking, his heavy boots thudding against the dirt. He grips his axe, ready to repeat history, but on a much faster timeline. The village is still being overrun, with fire spreading to every building. A young village girl runs through the smoke, desperate to find somewhere safe. A pair of goblins spot her and let out a hungry screech as they close in. Roken drops down from a nearby roof, landing right in their path. He charges forward before they can even react. A single swing sends a goblin's head flying as Roken tears through the pack. The other goblin stares in pure shock as its buddy gets deleted. Roken starts spinning his massive axe, creating a whirlwind of sharp steel. The goblin doesn't even have time to scream before it's shredded. He finishes the strike with a cold smile, leaving only pixelated remains. There are 25 goblins total, and Roken is checking them off one by one. Sneaking around and ambushing isn't exactly his style, but it gets the job done. He's already taken down 9 of them by picking them off in the shadows. He stands over the bodies, his silhouette dark against the burning village. The remaining goblins are starting to group up around their boss, making stealth impossible. Time for method number 2. He kicks open the door to an abandoned alchemy shop. The shelves are packed with potions that most players would just ignore. Roken is covered in blood and sweat, breathing heavily as he leans against a shelf. Fighting off multiple enemies at level 1 was a bit more reckless than he planned. He reaches out and grabs a glowing green health potion. He chugs the liquid in one go, desperate to get his strength back. A wave of energy hits him as his wounds instantly begin to heal. Suddenly, a massive roar shakes the entire building. Roken recognizes that voice instantly. It's the one he's been waiting for. The goblin boss and its pack have finally arrived, and they look pissed. Roken steps outside, staring down the massive elite monster with pure arrogance. "Come and get me," Roken shouts, daring the whole pack to move. The leader of the pack stares him down, its eyes glowing with pure malice. It lets out a roar and leads the charge, with every goblin in the area following close behind. Roken just laughs at the sight, calling them all a bunch of damn rats as they swarm him. The boss goblin bares its teeth, clearly not expecting this kind of defiance from a level 1 human. Roken decides it's time for method number 2, overgearing. He starts chugging strength and dexterity reinforcement potions. He tosses the empty bottles aside as the first wave of enemies closes in. One goblin lunges, but Roken is already in motion, swinging his axe with terrifying speed. A heavy strike connects, sending the monster flying backward. It slams into a stone wall with enough force to crack the rock and leave it pinned there. He doesn't slow down for a second, catching another one in his path and blowing it back. "Right, next!" he shouts, preparing for a much bigger move as he spins his weapon. He leans into a massive spin, turning his body into a whirlwind of destruction. The blade catches multiple goblins at once, shredding them before they can even think to dodge. The green monsters fly in every direction, completely overwhelmed by his sheer momentum. Bits of pixelation fill the air as the whirlwind clears out the entire front line. Roken has a wild, terrifying smile on his face, clearly enjoying the chaos he's causing. He delivers another massive slash that cuts through the smoke and fire, looking like a demon in the dark. He comes to a stop in the middle of the carnage, standing amidst the fading remains of his enemies. He looks back over his shoulder at the few survivors, his golden eyes glowing with cold light. A system notification pops up. He's triggered yet another surprise achievement. He won flawlessly against a massive group of stronger opponents and earned the magic grade title, Natural Fighter. Since he's the first one to ever acquire this title, the bonuses it gives him are legendary. It gives a permanent boost to his strength and dexterity, and even raises his crit rate when he's outnumbered. Roken smirks, realizing he just got a huge first-time bonus on top of the base rewards. Even though he's still only level 1, his boosted stats are already as high as a level 10 player. He turns his attention back to the goblins who are finally starting to look terrified. "Have you dumbass still not realized?" he asks with a mocking grin, his axe ready. He goes back to work, cutting through their ranks with even more power than before. He tells them they're no match for him as he slices through 3 more in one swing. Finally, the big guy, the level 15 armed goblin elite, decides to step in and end this. He lets out a bone-chilling roar that shakes the entire burning village. The elite boss leaps into the air, bringing its massive weapon down in a crushing strike. Roken effortlessly catches the blow on the handle of his axe, mocking the moronic boss to its face. The warehouse district is a total mess of dust and debris as the battle kicks off. The goblin boss lets out a deafening roar, raising its weapon high. Roken is barely dodging as the beast swings with enough force to shatter the ground. One of those swings connects, hitting him right in the chest. The monster doesn't give him a second to breathe, pressing the attack immediately. Roken slides back, bracing himself. The thing is a monster for a reason. Despite the damage, he flashes a wild grin and swings his own axe. The two clash in a massive explosion of sparks and impact lines. They trade blows at high speed, neither one backing down yet. The boss stomps down hard, nearly sending Roken flying with the shockwave. The beast looks down, breathing heavily as it stares at its prey. Roken is covered in sweat, realizing he's at a serious disadvantage. A giant green foot comes crashing down toward his head. The goblin boss roars, showing off rows of jagged, yellow teeth. The ground explodes again as another heavy strike lands. The system pings with the bad news. Roken just took over 300 damage, leaving him with only 20% health. The massive leg looms over him, blocking out the light. He rolls away just in time to avoid getting flattened. He puts some distance between them, his chest heaving as he gasps for air. Roken tries to figure out what's stopping him from landing a decisive hit. It's that insane defense. He just can't get a critical hit through with his current gear. To make matters worse, his stat potions only have 5 minutes left on the clock. Instead of panicking, he snickers and tells the monster to get ready. The goblin boss actually flinches, looking genuinely confused. It tilts its head, not sure what this tiny human is so confident about. It just lets out another massive, eardrum-shattering roar. Roken uses the opening to rush forward and start his retreat. The beast stomps through the rubble, chasing him into the ruins. The boss loses sight of him for a second as the dust thickens. Roken leads it straight toward a crumbling building in the village. The monster's glowing eye locks onto him as he ducks inside. Inside, Roken slumps against a wall, panting as he tries to recover. The game's realism is kicking in. Every breath feels like his ribs are grinding together. He pulls out a scroll, hating that he has to use cheap tactics to win. A loud crash echoes through the room as the boss smashes into the building. The monster stomps inside, its shadow filling the cramped space. Roken just sits there and mocks it, telling the thing it seems pretty angry. The boss swings its weapon wildly, tearing through the air. It's a frenzy of steel and wood as the room starts to fall apart. Roken ducks under the axe, narrowly avoiding getting his head taken off. In this tight corner, he realizes there's finally nowhere left to dodge. He braces himself as the axe comes flying in for the final strike. A massive burst of light and energy erupts as the final exchange begins. Roken screams out as the shockwave from the monster's strike tears through the air. He hits the floor hard, and a system message pops up with a warning. His health has officially dropped below 10%. The heavy steps of the goblin boss echo through the room as its silhouette looms over him. Roken forces out a roar of his own, pouring every bit of strength he has left into one last move. The monster's massive axe swings, but instead of hitting Roken, it slams directly into the main support pillar. The beast's eyes glow with confusion, not realizing the trap it just stepped into. Roken slumps against the wall with a grin, telling the monster that this is going to be its last moment. The floorboards groan and snap under the monster's weight. The goblin boss tries to turn, sensing something is very wrong with the building's foundation. The axe is wedged deep in the wood, and the entire pillar starts to crack and crumble under the strain. Roken explains the final part of his plan, using the environment to do the work he couldn't. He makes a desperate dash for the window, just as the monster starts to panic. The roof collapses inward, burying the boss under tons of stone and timber. Total chaos erupts as the entire two-story structure folds in on itself. Roken clears the blast zone just as the building finishes crumbling into a pile of rubble. The dust cloud settles after a massive boom, leaving nothing but silence in the ruins. Roken stands tall as the system confirms the boss is dead, even though his own health is sitting at less than 1%. An image of Odin flashes in his mind, the man he blames for everything that's happened to him. He clenches his fist, swearing to return every bit of this humiliation 1,000-fold. He takes a moment to breathe as the fires around him slowly burn out. The system praises his unbelievable feat of taking down an enemy 10 levels higher than himself. For his victory, he earns the legendary title David's Descendant. Roken looks at the notification in shock. He knew the rewards were good, but this is next level. Since he cleared the tutorial perfectly, he also lands the title Nothing is Impossible. He can't help but laugh out loud. The plan actually worked. Along with some basic survival supplies and coins, the system promises even more rewards to come. He lets out a dark snicker, finally feeling like the struggle was actually worth it. He decides it's time to see exactly how much stronger these new titles have made him. He pulls up his stat window, staring at the numbers with a cold, focused intensity. A wide, predatory grin spreads across his face as he reads the breakdown. He's hit the absolute jackpot, and with these stats, his revenge is finally within reach. He unlocked a legendary title. Nothing is impossible. Even Roken is stunned. A prize like this is a total game changer. The current effects are already huge, but there are still 3 more hidden slots to unlock. This changes everything. It's time to scrap the old plan and start from scratch. Then there's David's Descendant, which boosts his stats when he's facing enemies stronger than him. And the man of 1 versus 17 ramps up his defense the more opponents he's fighting. Even his unique grade titles are looking pretty stacked. He doesn't waste any time and cracks open every mystery box in his inventory at once. A pillar of light deposits him right in the middle of Pocket City. It's been a long time since he's seen the starting area this crowded. The sun is high, and the air is filled with the energy of thousands of new players. He shields his eyes and whistles, realizing the game's only been live for a few hours. But being back here brings up a lot of bad blood, specifically memories of those guys. That cold, arrogant stare is something he'll never forget. He can't stand the thought of Odin and the bastards who follow him. He grits his teeth as the old anger starts to bubble up. He lets out a heavy sigh, trying to focus on the present instead of the past. Back then, Odin was the undisputed king of this world. He sat on a throne while top-tier players flocked to him to swear their loyalty. They were so obsessed they even changed their names and appearances just to be part of the circle. Roken knows what's coming, but he isn't the same man he was back then. He kicks a pebble and tells himself to forget it. Brooding won't change the future. He's got to get moving if he wants to stay ahead of the pack. He starts walking through the city with a very specific goal in mind. He keeps a steady pace through the cobblestone streets. He suddenly stops as he reaches the edge of a large courtyard. The public training grounds are full of newbies whacking away at dummies under the watchful eye of a manager. The training ground manager stands there with his arms crossed, looking unimpressed by the rookies. Roken watches the crowd, knowing most of them don't realize the secret value of this place. One player is already gasping for breath as he repeatedly strikes a wooden post. Roken walks right up to the manager and tells him he wants to start training. Because of his high reputation, the old man decides he's looking at a future hero and gives him a massive discount. 20 copper coins? Roken is genuinely surprised by how cheap it is. All around him, players are swinging swords and clubs, trying to get their first level up. Roken rolls up his sleeves and takes a deep breath. He throws a heavy punch, a wild grin spreading across his face as he settles into the rhythm. Whack! He begins a relentless assault on the dummy, pouring every ounce of strength into his blows. The other players think this is just a simple way to pass the time before hunting. But after 5 hours, one guy starts complaining that his level hasn't moved at all. Most people would rather do easy fetch quests for squirrel hides than spend all day hitting a post. Player 1 and Player 2 decide they've wasted enough time and head out to find some goblins. But Roken just keeps punching, his eyes fixed on the dummy with absolute focus. Crack! He delivers a blow so hard it sounds like the wood is about to snap. He's completely out of breath, gasping for air as sweat pours down his face. He stops for a second, noticing a notification pop up in his line of sight. All that effort finally paid off. He knows that pushing his stamina to the limit is the only way to get these permanent stat boosts. He pulls out some hard barley bread, a basic reward from the tutorial. He takes a break to shovel the dry bread into his mouth, needing to refuel for the next round. He wipes the sweat away, a sharp, cold look returning to his eyes. Sure, leveling up is easy now, but those base stats will be the real difference makers when he's hundreds of levels deep. He forces himself back up, declaring that it's time to get back to work. Whoosh! His fist cuts through the air with even more speed than before. Pow! 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 The training yard is filled with the rhythmic sound of his relentless assault. The other players just stand there staring, wondering why this guy is putting so much intensity into a simple wooden dummy. He ignores them, knowing that once he starts actually leveling up, he won't be able to gain these specific stats anymore. He puts his entire weight into the next strike, ready to push past his limits. Bam! A massive hit connects right in the center of the post. The entire thing shatters into pieces, crumbling into a pile of rubble on the floor. Roken stares at the wreckage, his eyes wide with surprise. He lets out a triumphant scream. The grind is finally over. He just unlocked the unique grade title Workhorse, which permanently cuts the experience he needs to level up by 10%. And he's officially recognized as the mightiest person in town for literally breaking the training equipment. He pumps his fist, relieved that the 10-day marathon is finally behind him. Just as he's about to leave, a massive shadow looms over him. It's the training ground manager. The old man lets out a booming laugh, his eyes glowing with an eerie red light. Roken freezes, sensing a completely different aura coming from the manager than before. The manager extends a hand, offering to show him what real, high-level strength actually looks like. Roken's heart skips a beat. He just stumbled onto a legendary hidden quest. The instructor leads Roken deep into the cave, lantern lighting the way. He explains that they've reached a special training area, but Roken is skeptical. Roken's seen it all before, so he's not easily impressed by secret caves. Still, he gives a smug grin, curious about what the old man is hiding. When they arrive, Roken just looks annoyed, expecting another waste of time. Beyond the gate, he sees a room full of advanced training dummies. He starts complaining, thinking it's just more of the same boring practice. The instructor ignores the whining and pulls the heavy doors open. Inside, the construct's cores begin to glow a menacing green. These machines are on a different level, shifting into combat stances immediately. The old man gives him one last warning. If he messes up here, he's dead. Roken doesn't flinch and steps right into the arena. He cracks his knuckles with a wide, confident smirk. Behind him, his footsteps echo as he takes his position. The massive iron doors slam shut, locking him in with machines. Roken stands ready as the dummies activate their combat protocols. One of them lunges forward with a blindingly fast strike. Roken dodges the blow, his eyes already scanning for the next threat. A punch connects with a violent clash, throwing off sparks. He ducks and weaves, dashing through the metal crowd to find an opening. The dummies pivot their heads, glowing eyes tracking his every move. Roken snaps a powerful kick upward, catching a construct right in the chest. He skids across the tiles, resetting his stance as the friction burns. Breathing heavily, Roken wipes the sweat from his face and keeps his guard up. The machines don't stop, surrounding him and stepping in for a coordinated hit. Roken just hops lightly on his feet, mocking the lethal machines as simple toys. He's genuinely enjoying the pressure, feeling the thrill of the fight. With a shout, he lunges back in the group, ready to smash some scrap metal. 5 days of non-stop violence pass inside the locked chamber. The heavy doors finally screech open, revealing the aftermath. One of the last dummies is literally shaking in pieces, completely broken. Roken delivers a final, crushing blow that turns the machine into a pile of junk. He stands alone in wreckage, his silhouette glowing with power. A notification appears. He's become the first player to earn the Iron Will Epic title. Roken stares at the window with a look of pure satisfaction. He didn't think he'd be able to score such a rare title this early on. He remembers how much people struggled to get this in his past life. Comparing that to just playing around for a few days makes him chuckle. He wears a dark, triumphant grin as he checks his new stats. With the training complete, Roken arrives at the desert city of Metropolis Khan. He finds the Berserker Guild, a building covered in skulls and jagged horns. Inside, the Berserker Guildmaster is out cold at his desk, snoring loudly. Roken doesn't have time for naps, so he slams the desk to get the old man's attention. The Guildmaster wakes up at the start, questioning if this kid even knows who he's messing with. Roken doesn't blink, confirming he knows exactly where he is, the Berserker Guild. The big guy just laughs, clearly liking Roken's bold and manly attitude. He gives a final warning about the permanence of the choice, but Roken tells him to just hand over the job. With a heavy thud, the Guildmaster stamps the papers, making it official. A blinding surge of light erupts as the system registers the class change. The Guildmaster watches with a satisfied grin, seeing the potential in his newest member. Roken smirks as the power settles, feeling the immediate change in his stats. The Guildmaster points him toward a pile of gear and tells him to pick a weapon. Roken reaches out and grabs the leather-wrapped handle of a heavy axe. He lifts the massive blade, a dark, predatory look crossing his face. He gives a practice swing, the heavy metal cutting through the air with a loud whoosh. The Guildmaster watches in silence, impressed by how naturally the kid handles the weight. Roken goes into a full flurry of slashes, the axe becoming a blur of steel. He skids to a stop, the sheer force of his movements leaving the air humming. The big guy can't help but comment on how naturally gifted Roken seems to be. Roken just grips the handle tighter, wearing a grin that would make most people run. For a moment, his mind drifts back to the faces of the people who betrayed him. He specifically remembers Odin, the man who stood at the top while he fell. But Roken isn't the same man he was before. He's starting from zero with a much bigger plan. He knows the Berserker class is the key to tearing down the giants of this world. With the Berserk mode, he'll be able to crush anyone who stands in his way. He stands there, axe in hand, looking like the monster he's destined to become. His eyes glow with a faint red light as his bloodlust starts to simmer. Suddenly, a strange, glitchy blue window flickers into existence right in front of him. The Guildmaster is still standing there, but he doesn't seem to see the notification. Roken pauses, his eyes widening as he reads the text floating in the air. It's a hidden quest called Finding the Traces of Berserking, a path to becoming a successor. He stares at the screen, realizing that his journey just got a lot more interesting. Roken walks into the Airlock Bank and immediately demands a loan. He's looking to get as much cash as possible to kickstart his new run. It's a pretty bold move for a guy who just reset his level, but the bank exterior looks like they can definitely afford it. With his pockets lined, he heads straight to the Berserker Guild. The Guildmaster thinks he's being a bit too reckless with his money, but Roken isn't here for small talk. He pays up and instantly learns Axe Mastery. This gives his attack power a massive 70% boost right off the bat. Next, he grabs Dash. This one will make him a lot harder to hit by cranking up his agility. Then comes Strike. It's a heavy-hitting move that buffs both his strength and speed for his next swing. He also adds War Cry to his arsenal, a skill designed to literally shake the confidence out of his enemies. Finally, he unlocks Berserk. This is the bread and butter of his class, letting him tap into a raging power from within. After learning everything, Roken pauses for a second, looking a bit thoughtful. The Guildmaster asks him if something's wrong. Roken just turns and asks a random question about some ancient berserkers. The Guildmaster has zero clue what he's talking about, and just scratches his head in confusion. Roken heads back out into town square to think about his next move. Suddenly, a hidden quest pops up, Finding the Traces of Berserking. It seems he just unlocked a path to becoming a legendary successor. He sits by the fountain, wondering where on earth he's supposed to find clues about an ancient berserker. He knows the game's secrets better than anyone, yet this quest is a complete mystery to him. Even so, the thought of that primal, roaring power has him grinning. He's starting to get frustrated since he doesn't have a single clue to go on. He groans and scratches his head, looking like a total weirdo in the middle of the plaza. He pulls himself together, his expression hardening. He checks his status one last time. He's level 1, but his list of epic titles is absolutely stacked. Since the quest is a dead end for now, he decides it's time to focus on some good old-fashioned level grinding. He gets this creepy, satisfied look on his face as he starts planning his next hunt. Everyone in Square is just going about their day, totally unaware of a monster in their midst. Roken posts a recruitment notice, offering 15 silver for a guide to the orc camp. He just sits back and waits for someone to take the bait. It doesn't take long before he hears someone approaching. The heavy clink of metal armor echoes through the square. A guy named Vikel shows up, looking like a tank in his black plate armor. He immediately demands the payment in advance. Roken looks him over, not exactly impressed by the guy's attitude. Vikel starts bragging about being a level 25 heavy knight, laughing like he's the main character. Roken just waves him off like he's an annoying fly. This visibly irritates Vikel, while Roken just sighs, already bored with the guy's posturing. He tells the knight to just get lost and stop being such a pest. Vikel's ego can't handle being dismissed by some random newbie. He uses a detection skill on Roken, his hand glowing with a blue light. Roken just looks down, his voice dropping to a dangerous low. He glares up at Vikel, asking him what he thinks he's doing. Vikel sees Roken's level and starts laughing his head off. He can't believe a level 1 kid is trying to act tough. Roken just scratches his head, completely unfazed. Vikel keeps snickering, thinking he's found an easy target to bully. But Roken's expression shifts. He's got that look in his eyes again, the one that spells certain doom for whoever is in front of him. Vikel starts shouting at him, mocking the level 1 newbie in front of the whole crowd. Roken just lets out a sinister little laugh, knowing the guy just gave him a legal excuse to beat him into the pavement. Vikel looks like he's about to pop a vein from the sheer disrespect. Roken just leans in and proposes a bet, 15 silver coins to the winner. The knight's jaw drops. He can't believe this newbie is still trying to gamble. Roken just laughs and flicks his fingers, treating the whole fight like easy money. He stands there completely relaxed, hands at his sides without a weapon in sight. Vikel loses his cool and charges, his heavy armor clanking with every step. The knight is pouring everything into this charge, his face twisted with effort. But Roken just stands his ground with a smug grin. He's got that look in his eyes, the one that says he's already won. The fight is taking place right in front of some pretty impressive town architecture. Footsteps echo through the plaza as more people notice the commotion. A group of higher-level adventurers stop to see what all the noise is about. Word travels fast, and soon the whole square is buzzing with chatter. Even the veterans are confused, wondering why a level 1 is challenging a knight. Roken doesn't seem to mind the crowd. If anything, he's enjoying the spotlight. A huge group of players gathers around the fountain to watch the spectacle. Vikel adjusts his heavy plate armor, counting on his defense to carry him. He grips his massive mace and gives it a test swing with a heavy clack. He looms over Roken, looking like a literal wall of black metal. Roken just shrugs and gives him a casual sure, like he's bored. Then he decides to really end conversation by flipping Vikel off. The knight is absolutely fuming now, his teeth grit in pure frustration. He stomps his foot down hard enough to crack the stone under him. He swings his mace with a massive whoosh, aiming right for Roken's head. A heavy weapon smashes into the ground, sending a shockwave through the plaza. But Roken has already stepped aside, watching the knight struggle with cold eyes. Vikel doesn't slow down, following up with a desperate horizontal swing. He keeps lashing out, but he's hitting nothing but air as Roken dances around him. Roken moves with supernatural speed, dodging every blow with inches to spare. Vikel is starting to huff and puff, his stamina draining fast as he misses again. Roken gets right in his face with a mocking smirk that makes the bully flinch. Vikel shouts in rage, calling him an arrogant brat while swinging wildly. Roken finally decides to end the show, stepping in and landing a massive punch on Vikel's helmet. The knight's head snaps back, and he can't fathom how a level 1 has this much power. What the bully doesn't know is that Roken spent days grinding against top-tier training dummies. He explains that he maxed out his base stats before the class change reset his level. In reality, his raw physical power is equivalent to someone at level 50 or higher. The bystanders are completely floored, their mouths hanging open at the revelation. Even the veteran players in the crowd can't believe their eyes. Roken doesn't stop, grabbing Vikel's chest plate and literally shattering the metal with his bare hands. Vikel looks terrified, his eyes wide with the realization that he's in way over his head. With one last smash, Roken proves that a newbie label doesn't mean a thing when you got god-tier stats. Roken stands victoriously over his broken opponent, his eyes glowing with a sinister orange light. His status window pops up, revealing the terrifying truth. Even at level 1, his stats are already high enough to crush anyone who stands his way. Vikel is completely done for. He's been smashed into a stone wall, and a system message confirms Roken just walked away with 15 silver coins. Roken doesn't even bother looking back. He just smirks, calling a haul a bit of pocket change. The crowd is losing it. They can't believe a level 1 player just took down a tank like that with nothing but his bare hands. Roken clenches his fist, feeling the power of his built-up stats. He cracks his knuckles, clearly satisfied with how that went down. As he starts to walk away, a hand reaches out. Someone's calling out to him. Roken stops and looks back over his shoulder. A professional-looking party is standing there, a guy in heavy armor, a purple-clad mage, and a healer. The leader brings up the guide request Roken posted earlier. 15 silver to get him to the orc camp. The mage, Elfie, and the healer, Rose, stand ready behind their leader. Roken sizes them up. They look competent enough for the job. He agrees to the deal, but he's already thinking ahead to the next stage. The tank leader explains the terms. It's a dangerous trek through the wild forest to reach their destination. Roken doesn't hesitate and pulls out a heavy bag of coins. He tosses the initial payment over. He's ready to move. Soon, the group is deep into the wild forest, navigating the thick mist and tangled trees. They move in a tight formation, keeping a lookout for any high-level threats lurking in the shadows. Suddenly, the tank leader raises a hand. He spotted something up ahead. A massive orc watchtower looms over the path, decorated with bones and bull skulls. The group ducks into the bushes, staying completely out of sight. The leader whispers the plan. They need to get past those guards without raising an alarm. Rose reaches into her pack and pulls out a large slab of meat. The leader takes the lure, preparing to toss it. The meat hits the ground with a soft thud right in the middle of the path. Two massive orc guards stop in their tracks. The scent catches their attention immediately. They stare at the unexpected meal, their yellow eyes widening. One of them leans in for a closer sniff. It's too good for them to pass up. Distraction successful. The orcs start moving toward the meat, leaving their post. The leader watches them go, waiting for the perfect moment to signal the others. He gives a nod. It's time to move while the guards are occupied. They stay low, sneaking past the distracted monsters. Roken is actually impressed by how coordinated these guys are. They push further into the territory, moving quickly and quietly through the brush. They reach the edge of the camp and peer through the foliage. The main camp is a fortress of spiked logs, but there's a small gap in the back, a secret entrance. There's just one problem. An orc guard is standing right in front of the gap. The leader ducks back down. They weren't expecting a guard to be posted right there. He looks over at Elfie. They're going to need a different approach for this one. Elfie raises her staff, and purple magical energy starts swirling around her. She casts silence, manifesting a complex magic circle in the air. The guard is completely oblivious to the spell being woven right in front of him. The tank leader doesn't waste a second. He bursts from the bushes in a high-speed sprint toward the guard. The orc tries to scream for help, but purple runes wrap around his throat, choking the sound before it can leave his mouth. The silence spell works perfectly. The orc guard can't even let out a whimper as purple runes bind his voice. The tank leader doesn't waste the opening. One clean, swift slash, and the guard is taken care of before he can react. He lands softly inside the camp, clearing the way for the rest of the group to follow. The deal is officially done. The final payment hits the leader's hand with a satisfying clack. Roken is right where he needs to be, at the secret back entrance of the high-level orc camp. He hands over the last bag of silver coins, making good on the remaining 5 silver he owed. The tank leader warned him one last time that staying here alone is suicide, but Roken just brushes it off with a casual wave. The guide party turns to head back into the forest. They've done their job, and now it's all up to Roken. Rose is genuinely confused. She can't wrap her head around why someone would pay a fortune just to throw their life away in a camp like this. Elfie, however, isn't so sure Roken is just some reckless newbie. She's seen enough to suspect something else is at play. She stops the group, suddenly realizing the strategic genius behind Roken's earlier duel. As they walk away, she begins to break down exactly what she noticed about his fight with Vikal. She points out that Roken didn't just fight. He perfectly manipulated Vikal into attacking first. By doing that, he triggered the game's self-defense mechanic, allowing him to take the experience and silver without becoming a criminal. Rose and the leader listen intently as Elfie explains that Roken is playing a much deeper game than any of them realized. Roken isn't some lucky rookie. He's a master who knows every rule and exploit in the book. He steps forward into the heart of the camp, his pace steady and completely confident. He stayed at level 1 for a very specific reason, and he's finally reached a place where that gamble can pay off. It doesn't take long for the orcs to spot him. The whole camp goes on high alert as they surround the lone human intruder. Roken just stands his ground, axe resting on his shoulder, wearing a massive, predatory grin. He takes a deep, calm breath, letting the tension of the surrounding horde build around him. Then, he lets out a roar that echoes through the entire camp, challenging the orcs' sense of warrior honor. The orcs are stunned into silence by his audacity. They've never seen a human invoke their own laws with this much guts before. This is exactly what Roken wanted. He knows the secret culture of the orcs better than anyone from his past life. By challenging them at the warrior's shelter, he forces them into one-on-one duels instead of letting them mob him. He isn't here to just grind levels like an average player. He has a much more ambitious goal in mind. He's aiming for the ultimate qualification required to become the absolute strongest player in the game. To do that, he has to pull off a nearly impossible feat that most top rankers wouldn't even dream of attempting. The reward is a legendary title, something so rare it would give him a permanent edge over everyone else. The orcs are still shouting in fury, but the rules are set. In his zone, it's one warrior against another. Roken's eyes glow with a dangerous light. He's ready to show these monsters exactly what a true warrior looks like.